What's the haps? I'm Meroka, and today I'm going to be taking a quick look at Swarm Universe by Dedication Games. This caught my attention because it's a shmup with a kind of a twist. I mean, I don't know if it's fair to call it a shmup. I mean, you're top down and you're sort of throwing bullets at enemies, but you don't really fire them. You certainly don't shoot them. You more sort of gesture. You can guide. You can sort of suggest where the bullets should go, but you don't really fire them. And that's definitely an interesting concept, so we're going to hop in and we're going to have a look at this today. We have an interesting sort of way to navigate with a gamepad. Basically, the analog stick is basically just an analog, as it were, for a mouse. So yeah, we can move the mouse around with the stick, which is... I don't know why they couldn't implement a proper menu. I feel like that should have been a fairly straightforward thing to do, but hey, never mind. We have single player, we have multiplayer. I say we have multiplayer. I was not able to find a game. The game only came out today. Obviously, prior to this, there have not been many people beyond a few press copies in the world, so that wasn't not terribly surprising that I couldn't find a multiplayer game. The game is now out at time of recording this, so, you know, at launch, one might hope there will be a few players. Still not finding any, which is a little concerning. Modding is a very, very fancy way of saying level editor, really. It's a little over-glamorized of a term for a level editor, but that is what that is. You can make your own levels and content for this. Options menu is what we're interested in. Video, we have resolution settings and low, medium, and high quality. It is, as you can kind of see, floating around in the background, a fairly low fidelity kind of game. It's simplistic graphical style at any rate. Certainly maybe some kind of Geometry Wars inspirations going in there. A little bit more detailed than Geometry Wars. I'm trying to think what it does remind me of, but the game's actually eluding me. It's certainly a style I've seen a few times in this genre. It's not the most original of styles for shmup and shmup type affairs. Audio sliders, volume sliders, call them what you will. I'm stripping over my words, but all of them are on separate sliders, so that's always good to see. We like that. Controls, gamepads and keyboard both appear to be rebindable. On a gamepad, I'm probably not going to advocate that too much, but then again, there's only really like 2 significant controls beyond movement, so maybe you want to move in some other keys, I don't know. It's basically the shoulder buttons are the only ones that really do a lot in the game, and they work fine for me. We have mouse sensitivity as well, adjustable, which is nice to see. Help texts can be reset. I think mostly that applies to the level editor, which is... I would prefer to see an actual help section in the level editor rather than just having to reset the entire tutorial, but at least you can go back and dig out information if you lose it. And that is that. We shall head on into single player. We have Foundation is basically your tutorial, so we're not going to bother with that too much. Dark Matters is the actual story mode. Each of these other slots, I think, gets filled with stuff that you've downloaded from the Steam Workshop that other people have made, but Dark Matters is the story mode that comes with the game. And I want to call it tacked on. It is tacked on. But they also kind of riff on that a bit. It's intended to be tacked on, and it's a little bit silly in that regard. There are this many levels. There are 5 sections, each of them punctuated with kind of an arena fight kind of thing. The level number is a basic standard start at point A, get to point B kind of level, and everything that actually has a name is actually an arena kind of affair. And I think they're the more interesting levels, which is unfortunate because that basically means there's only about 6 of them. So we shall have a look at a standard level. Let's hop into 3-1, why not? They're all much of a muchness. Hey, we've got a little bit of the story, which is this robot chappie is basically pretending to be all the characters in a Rescue the Princess story because it's so generic, lol. So we are the glowy orb in the middle, the nondescript generic glowy orb. The swarm around us is indeed our swarm, for it is a swarm universe. They just sort of gravitate generally about our position, and as we move they go with us, so we can sort of guide them around in this way. The circle around us is basically our area of influence, and if I press right bumper, they will accelerate basically until they're outside the circle, honestly. So if I fire them over there, you can see I can't interact with them now. And using your acceleration ability basically reduces the size of the circle, so that once it hits 0, you're out. And apparently there's an achievement for doing that all the way. Apparently I've not fired my ability down to 0 before. So as the achievement just demonstrated, it is in fact best used in short bursts, which is interesting because that's the first time I think I've seen an achievement used as a kind of a tutorial method, which is certainly an interesting way to deliver that. Around us, you can see we've kind of got some bars. Bars are basically hit points. If you take a hit, you will flash for a few seconds and not be invulnerable. Normally one would expect a flashing avatar to mean invulnerability. Not so here, that is not what this means. It means the exact opposite. It means you're super vulnerable, don't get hit again. If you get hit again whilst you're flashing, it is game over. So try and get out of danger and hang around a few seconds. So yeah, rather than, you know, using a second stick to aim your gun or anything, you are just sort of having to gesture in the direction of the enemies, or kind of get some kind of slingshot stuff going on. I mean, you don't even actually technically have to fire. You can kill them, things like that. You can just sort of swing your swarm around into stuff and kill things that way. It's a valid way of doing it. It's probably not the most effective way of doing it, but it is a way of doing it. And yeah, the orbs that they drop will slowly charge up your shields. They drop yellow orbs, and they also contribute to your score multiplier in the top corner, which will deplete over time, as score multipliers are wont to do. So yeah, try and keep killing things and keep your score going up, and get to the end of the level with a high score, and you'll get on the scoreboards. That is really about the shape of it. You also have a dash, which is on the left bumper. You can kind of tactically use that in a manner. I will attempt to demonstrate it, but I've mostly used it more by fluke than by chance. So if I were to say fire my swarm over there, but then dash this way, the swarm dashes with me in the same direction. So you can kind of fire your swarm off to one side, then use it to like kind of drag the swarm through a crowd of enemies. It's certainly an advanced maneuver. I would say there seems like there's a good number of advanced maneuvers that you can learn to do. The game starts you off with a sort of move towards the enemy and fire your swarm at them, or move around and slingshot it around you a bit, and then fire the swarm in the direction you want it to go, and that's really all the game teaches you. But it's clear that there are a few other subtleties to these mechanics that advanced players can learn and get to grips with, and do something a bit more interesting, a bit more fun, like with that sideways shot, which I absolutely cannot execute well, but there we go, that kind of works. But I can see that it does work, and it's cool that it's there. So it's definitely an interesting way of fighting, an interesting and novel way of fighting. My main gripe is that I actually really don't like these levels at all. All the levels are stylized pretty much the same as this, just these sort of glowy cave things, and a bunch of generic geometric enemies floating around in space. There's a reasonable variety of enemies, there's certainly plenty to find, but all the levels, all the numbered levels, of which these, do comprise the bulk of the game, there's really not a lot to them. Got those checkpoints every so often. I don't think there seems to be a proper life system per se. If you die, you just go back to the checkpoint. It saves your score wherever you were, but obviously you lose your score multiplier. So if you're looking for the high scoreboards, you're probably not going to want to die, and you're not going to do terribly well. And it's interesting because it's basically, in many regards, it's actually not a time-based thing. Normally high scoreboards is often like, there's a major element of who can be the fastest to complete it. And obviously being fast means you're losing less score multiplier, but I don't think you necessarily need to be the fastest person in the world. You just need to be very effective at what you do. So there you go, I took a hit, everything around all my UI around the ship flashes for a couple seconds. That is my vulnerability period, not my invulnerability period. Don't get the two confused. I know gaming has conditioned you to think that that's your invulnerability period, but you don't get that here. You don't get invulnerability while dashing as well, I don't think. That was cleared up in the tutorial. I don't remember. I usually try to use my dash to get away from enemies, frankly. And that is the end of a level, so let's go through a portal to find the princess, says the Tacton story. The whole point of the Tacton story, I think, is a little bit to emphasize the fact that, again, they want you to be doing, they want you to make and download and play through community content, not really necessarily to play the content that they made. They're like, here, this is a token effort, we made a token effort, but we'd actually like user-created content. I will play through Rush Hour, because I want to show you one of the arenas, because I do think these are actually some of the better levels. So let's hop on into this. This one is mostly a square one. Quick, score 30,000 points to get me out of here. Yes, rescue the princess by scoring points. tacked on as hell. But you're not playing the game for the story. You're playing the game for interesting mechanics, right? And it's only got that. These are the better levels. You just get an infinite supply of enemies that will spawn in certain patterns. I guess they will be scripted in the editor if you want to go down sort of that route, sort of set timings and patterns and things and orders. I'm not a game designer, unfortunately, so I don't know a lot about that. But you know, they'll start out with I presume you start out with kind of a regular pattern, and at some point you got to reach like a limit. So, or I presumably go into some sort of end game kind of loop that's fairly challenging and likely to get you killed a few times. But at any rate, as long as you're good enough, you can continue to rack up the points and score well. Obviously, if you're scoring really slowly, if you're just mopping up enemies slowly, you're not going to get to 30,000 very quickly. I mean, I guess it's doable, but really you need to be trying to get some multipliers, and I'm not doing a great job of that here. I'm just more sort of moseying about, meandering around, not really scoring a lot. Honestly, sort of just generally tapping attack a lot when there's a lot of enemies around you can cause quite a lot of havoc and rack up a good multiplier as well, actually. Just because you'll have particles going in a lot of directions, bits of your swarm will be flying all over the place, and you can direct them around the place to shoot all the enemies, and you can see I can just kind of sort of mash things up and get like a 30 multiplier going on. And that's pretty fun, that's pretty satisfying to do that. The final boss, as it is, I thought it was just a boss. No, it turned out it was the final boss. I have actually straight up beaten the game. You may consider this a review if you want. Not many of my videos can be considered a full review, so this one you totally can. The final boss is also just a swarm thing, but that one is more of a hard limit. It's here's a bunch of pre-programmed waves that get tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher. If you can survive all of them, you win the level. If you die, you don't win the level. You don't actually get to kill a boss, which I thought would have been interesting to actually see some sort of actual, genuine, bona fide boss mechanics in this. But sadly, that was not to be. So never mind. Again, kind of leading back into we want you to make content for the game rather than us doing that. So all in all, the whole thing has taken me about 2 hours to play through as a game. And for a game that they're asking £10.99 for, or your regional equivalent, I think a lot of people might consider that to be not quite enough. I mean, 2 hours is 2 hours from a game developer's perspective is the awkward place on Steam where people can and will finish your game in its entirety and then ask for a refund because they haven't owned your game for 2 hours. So the fact that the campaign is with a modicum of skill, which you all know I don't have a lot of that, with any slight modicum of skill you can probably beat the game in under 2 hours. Again, they're hoping that there will be community content to keep you engaged, but, built into the game, the actual gameplay made by game developers is unfortunately sadly lacking, which is a shame because it's an interesting concept. And they have a level editor in there, so, just more single-player content to actually engage the players with your interesting mechanics would probably have counted for quite a lot in this instance. As it is, you've got all those caves levels, which are all, much of a muchness, and the less fun of the content. And you've got this, which is actually pretty cool, and I've now racked up 100,000 points. I've totally saved the princess. I am amazing. Check me out. I just took a hit. I'm not that amazing. Don't check me out. Yeah, this content's great. I like this content a lot. I could go for more than, I think it's about 6 or 7 levels total in the game. If there are like 5 sections, and there's one of these at the end of each section, plus a boss fight, I think there are about 6 of these arenas in the game, which kind of sucks, because these are the good levels. These are levels I would absolutely want to see more of. And yes, maybe the community will make more of that content, but the community are not game developers. I feel like at launch of a game, the game developers should have put stuff in their game more than just, a tech demo, which is actually kind of what this feels like this is. And of course, you've got that weird early adopter thing with buying a game that's reliant on community content of, well, it's day one, nobody's made any community content. Yeah, maybe 2 years down the line, maybe a reasonable player base will have evolved and started making content for this, and there might be a good amount of content. But you know, other games that have been reliant on community-driven content, the likes of your Little Big Planet, they had a very, very solid single player to begin with before you delved into the endless depths that were community-driven content. And I know Little Big Planet had a much bigger budget and a much bigger team working on it in this game, but well, frankly, the principle still applies. The general concept still applies. The game needs to have content in it when you're selling it for people to want to buy it, and it kind of doesn't. Which is a shame, because as far as shmups go, this is pretty novel. I like it. Again, the story is absolutely... I was going to say the story's take it or leave it, but I don't think there's much to take. The story's just entirely leave it. The story's... There's no story to really get engaged with there. It's much ado about nothing, frankly, story-wise. But the gameplay is very solid. I could honestly have done without the story. If they not bothered with the story and just been like, here is a series of arena fights for your delectation, I would have been a very happy man. That would have been a really cool concept. Like, okay, you've designed a bunch of interesting arenas, scripted a bunch of interesting encounters throughout it, and the whole dang thing is just this massive, awesome score attack thing. Hey, I scored 500,000. Apparently there are cheaps for that. I have not scored 500,000 yet. I don't know what the leaderboards are doing like. It's like, it's one of those games that's very satisfying to review, because you always come like 4th on the leaderboard, and it's like, hey, I'm great at this game. I'm 4th in the world on this, and then, you know, then there's the dawning realization that, oh, only about 10 people in the world have actually played this game so far. So, hey, there we go. 579,000. How did I do? I rescued the princess, but I don't know if I'm #1 in the world. Oh no, the princess is in another castle. Who would have thought? Slightly snarky, slightly bored of storytelling robot telling us a tacked-on story. We are #5 in the world. I guess a few people playing the game now. Never mind. That was Swarm Universe. As I say, that is available for £10.99 or your regional equivalent. It is available on Steam today. There will be links in the description below. I like it as a concept, but as I would advise, you're not getting a lot of gameplay for your money at this stage in the game. If you want to hang fire on it and sort of put it on your Steam wishlist or something and maybe contemplate coming back to it in a while, at your discretion, when there may be a bunch of, you know, story content, it may be worth your money. I mean, I suppose, actually, if we go back to the main menu, we can have a quick look at the editor. The editor is not super straightforward, but yeah, but you're basically like, this is my entire story. You're making a story. You make a story, and then each story is basically a sequence of levels. So you make a bunch of level sequences, and then you edit each one individually, and we come into here. This one, I guess the game is only partial gamepad support in that regard, insofar as you can't use your gamepad to edit the levels. So you can make a basic level, and then you can pick enemies, and you can drop them down in the level. There we go. We can put a few crawlers in there. We could put some firecrackers, those little mines that chase us around. Cool. We can put some scorpions in there. What's a scorpion? Scorpions are those guys. Fair enough. Okay. And we can transform them. We can rotate them and stuff. In transform mode, you can move, rotate, and scale your selection. So, I guess we could move the... I've got those guys grouped together, so we can move them as a selection. We can rotate them. It's, honestly, it's maybe it takes a bit of getting used to, but it feels like a little bit of a clunky interface. I don't know. I've not obviously spent a lot of time with this, and it's not feeling very intuitive, unfortunately. But there you have it. For people who are willing to sit down and invest some time in what, frankly, are dev tools, you will be able to make some community content and flesh out this game a bit. And hopefully, some people are willing to take that particular mantle, because, well, the game needs it in order to be worth playing, unfortunately, I think. But there you go, Swarm Universe. Thank you for joining me. I have been Meroka, and I will see you next time.